Did you know that there's a new Dungeons and Dragons movie out this weekend? Well, I did. And I saw it in theaters not just once, but twice, so that I can talk all about it. Before we dive into spoiler territory, I do want to say that I enjoyed the film a lot. I saw it a second time. I laughed at many of the same places again in a theater with other people, so it was just as funny. Second time I saw it as the first time. Highly recommend going out seeing it. You do not need to know about D&D, playing any of the tabletop games or the various video games. You can just go in there with no knowledge and have a really fun time. Also, if you like this video review and the other stuff we have on the channel, please hit that like button and subscribe so that we can put more stuff together for you all. If you're still with us, this is the point of no return. We are getting into spoilers, so spoiler warnings, spoiler warnings. Go out, see the film, come back, check out the review. But if you're on the fence about whether to see it or not, please stick around, hear my thoughts. Hopefully they'll convince you to go support the film in theaters. Where to start? You know what? Let's start with the landscape. I've seen a lot of movies, sci-fi, fantasy over the last few years, and this is one that really brought me back to when I first saw the Lord of the Rings, the original trilogy, for the first time. You're introduced to a brand new world and you don't quite know what you're getting into, but you see this giant scale of lands and cultures and people, and you just know that you're in for an adventure. The movie opens up with this wonderful, wonderful camera angle going over this desolate, icy landscape in the middle of nowhere with this tower that you don't know what it is, but you know you're going to head there and that it must not be a fun place to spend your time. You find out that this is a prison transport where there's some horse-drawn carriages sled over this ice, and a prisoner arrives in this tower, and you get to see all of the heavy security. And I'll be honest, this is how a prisoner transport scene needs to be. Not the Crimes of Grindelwald crap from the latest Harry Potter series where you've got this genius mastermind who's trying to organize his escape and manages to do so. No, this is a tower with extreme security, and they are keeping a very sharp eye on their prisoners, and it is in the middle of frickin' nowhere. So even if you do escape, how the heck do you find your way home? We're going to talk about that prison escapee scene later because that cracked me up so much. And even just thinking about it right now, I am smiling. I do want to highlight some of the expansive world that they're introducing here, because to get home in this escape and throughout the film, there are several places that we get to visit, and this includes even more snow and ice. Some horses are stolen to help them cover some ground. They also end up stealing a boat. I keep seeing a theme here. It's almost like this cast of characters is made up of thieves. Eventually, they do get to move away from all the snow and ice and cold and annoyances of the above ground, journey into the Underdark, full of things such as lava and magma and evil creatures, spooky cities held by creatures who may not have the best intentions. In other words, Paramount put their money where their mouth was. They put a budget behind the production, the staff, the creatives, getting the right actors, actresses in front of the screen. Speaking of, let's jump to the characters and the actors that play them. Individually, they're all really great at their jobs and they all have their moment to shine. But what really works for me in the film is when they have one of the other cast members on screen and they can bounce back and forth with some hilarious results. Sherlock had perfect timing. Perfect timing. We're first introduced to Edgin and Holga in their cell in this wonderful imprisoned for crimes that we don't really know about yet. But we get to find out that Edgin kind of has a heart of gold. He used to have a family. He used to be a harper who's one of the good guys in the kingdom, trying to stop petty thieves, stop spies, stop evil from taking over the land. When that came back to bite him in the butt and his wife ended up getting killed, Holga kind of rescued him. And by rescued him, I mean helped him raise his tiny little daughter from a baby. She's what we would consider the brawn while he comes up with the plans. Sometimes those plans work, sometimes they don't. Edgin ends up thinking on his feet and getting them through their latest scrape, while Helga kind of is obsessed beating other people to a pulp. You know how it goes when you're playing some D&D and you've got the strong fighter type who may not have the most intelligence, but she knows what weapon to pick up or how to create a weapon out of her surrounding, and she will win the day. Then we have Doric and Simon, who we went on one date at one point that we don't get to see in the film, but did not go well for him, shall we say. Simon is the wizard of the party, of middling skills, shall we say. Sometimes he can pull off some really cool stuff. Other times he really does not know what he's doing. At one point in the film, there's a skill check needed for his wizardry and his spells, and he clearly is losing his concentration. His foot gets stuck in the cobblestones, and the illusion that he's holding starts to, I wouldn't say disappear, but over time it just gets worse and worse and worse. And oh my God, the entire theater just burst out laughing both times that I saw the film. You can see that there's an illusion of Edgin playing the lute and singing to some soldiers to distract them, and it just gets warped so bad over time. It is absolutely hilarious, and clearly they know something's going wrong. Doric is a shapeshifter who was born to human parents, and they did not appreciate her talent, so she ran away and is living in an enclave, fighting the good fight against evil, trying to take over the kingdom. And she is all in to fight them and prevent this from happening. So she joins the crew and she spies for them by changing it to animals to overhear things that she shouldn't be. In the process, she is found out, and there's a really cool escape sequence that happens where she is just transforming into different animals and working her way out of the palace and past the guards. And there's a hilarious one where she's going down the steps as a mouse and she's crawling down, dodging left and right, and you've got the soldiers are like trying to pounce on her, and it's just like a really cool sequence to see her managing to escape. And yes, she does turn into a deer. Then we have Kira, who is Edgin's daughter, and she is adorable. She grows up over time. We get to see some flashbacks of her growing up with Edgin and Helga and the group over time. It's a pendant that can make her invisible, which is really key towards the end of the film. She is currently living with Uncle Forge, who was a part of their crew back in the day, and he has taken over Neverwinter, and he is the Lord, kind of like a pompous ass, to be honest, using all of his ego, but he's taking care of Kira while Helga and Edgin are imprisoned. But then we do find out that he wasn't the nice guy after all, and a lot of what's happening is actually due to him collaborating with the evil Red Wizards. Safina was the one who originally hired the crew to rob a Harper stronghold and steal some artifacts that they didn't quite know what they were getting. Edgin was going after a Home of Resurrection. I forget what it's called, but I think that's it. And she was after this red, evil-looking horn that nobody quite knew what it was. But she teams up with Forge to get them trapped, hoping to get everyone trapped, but Simon is able to escape, and she works with Forge to poison the current Lord of Neverwinter and install him in their place. And so he rules over Neverwinter, and she is pulling the puppet strings behind the scenes. You can't have a D&D party without a paladin. Zinc is a great one. He is introduced as a counterpoint to some of the evil in the land. He is involved in some of the fights that are really, really fun in this film. He leads the crew to the Underdark, where they're going after a helm that should help them steal all the treasure from Neverwinter and get back Forge. While there, they are ambushed by the undead army, and this great sword fight scene and dagger fight scene where then we get a monster introduced that ruins everything for everyone. our paladin. This is a great paladin. He's not in the film too much, but when he is in the scenes, he completely steals it through his interactions and deadpan humor with the other cast members. Speaking of monsters, we've got an introduction to several creatures from the D&D world. We've got a roly-poly dragon who is kind of lazy but gets his snacks where he needs them and decides to munch on part of the fighting party. And that is a fight scene where, I'll be honest, I was rooting for the little dragon. I knew I was supposed to be rooting for the heroes, but I wanted the little roly-poly dragon to win. We also have some mimics, the fake treasure chests that are creatures and go after people. Doric makes an appearance as an owl bear, smashing and grabbing and killing some weird tentacle things that are used to entrap people. We also have a stone dragon turned into a real dragon as a fight. And then one of the funniest things that I saw is the most epic hand battle. And then I had to laugh out loud because at a certain point, the Red Wizard and Simon get into a fight, and it's pretty much an epic arm wrestling battle with a flesh hand coming from the evil Red Wizard and a stone hand conjured up by the Simon, and they're going at it very intently, and it's really just two hands wrestling against each other. It was so funny. If you have any favorite moments, if you just really want to talk about some of the crazy monsters and fight scenes and gloriousness that we saw in this film, please put it in a comment below. If you have any extra D&D knowledge that you want to impart to us, please do so. There's a lot more to this film that we can talk about, but I'd be here all night. And if you really like this video, please subscribe to the channel. We're trying to grow. We're trying to be able to cover bigger and better things. We'll see you soon. Bye.